Aeroflow Urology makes accessing incontinence supplies like adult briefs, pull-ons, underpads, and more simple, affordable, and stress-free. Aeroflow delivers directly to your home every month at no cost through insurance for adults and children aged 3 and up. Their dedicated continence care specialists guide you every step of the way. And as a high-trust certified provider, Aeroflow has helped over 2 million people save hundreds of dollars every month. Ready to see if you qualify for free supplies? Visit aeroflowurology.com/NAFC to complete a quick 2-minute form and know if you're eligible in minutes. That's AEROFLOW urology.com/NAFC. Have your insurance card ready and let Aeroflow handle the rest. Coverage requirements do apply. What if the solution to your biggest challenge didn't exist, so you have to invent it yourself? Well, in this episode, you're going to meet Bella Duarte-Crespo, whose journey from childhood incontinence to entrepreneur and patient advocate is a powerful reminder that determination can turn even life's toughest obstacles into opportunities. Welcome to Life Without Leaks, a podcast by the National Association for Continence. NAFC is America's leading advocate for people with bladder and bowel conditions, with resources, connections to doctors, and a welcoming community of patients, physicians, and caregivers, all available at nafc.org. Welcome back to another episode of Life Without Leaks. I'm your host, Bruce Cassover, and joining us as always is Sarah Jenkins, the Executive Director of the National Association for Continence. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks so much, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm excited. Today is going to be a real treat because we have a guest who does not really fit the profile of our typical guest. Today, we're going to be talking with a young woman named Bella Duarte-Crespo, and she is a student. She's an entrepreneur and a patient advocate. Right now, she's at the University of Notre Dame. She just finished her first year, but she has some really interesting things to tell us about life with incontinence and how you can overcome some of those challenges. So, Bella, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we are too, because it's not often we get to speak to a young person about the sorts of issues that we are talking about normally on this podcast. So maybe, first of all, you just want to tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to be where you are today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd love to introduce myself. I'm Bella Duarte-Crespo, as you mentioned. And I was born with spina bifida meningocele, which is basically a birth defect of the spine. And pretty much it affects all my muscles from the waist down, including my bladders, my bowels, and my legs. As a result, there's a lot of symptoms I've had to manage growing up. And because of that, there have been a lot of different challenges, having to navigate school, friendships, all that stuff. But especially when I was younger, we found it was very difficult to manage my incontinence. And when my mom and I were looking on the market, trying to find something that would be a solution that I could use at school when I had accidents, we were surprised we couldn't find anything on the market. And that's when we decided to create our own solution to the problem. And we started with prototyping, testing out different types of pockets, maybe in my underwear, in my school uniform, anything really that I could use to carry a catheter, my medical supplies, and that would make changing very easy if I ever had an accident on the go. And after many years of prototyping and testing, we finally came up with my private pocket, which is an underwear with pockets inside of it where you can carry your medical supplies. And then if you have an accident, what you can do is you can roll up the underwear into one of those pockets and it becomes a waterproof little pouch. That way you could walk out of the bathroom and nobody knows that you have an accident. And that product is my baby. It's what started my whole journey into entrepreneurship and business. I launched Hidden Innovations in Disguise, which is my business, in 2019. And from there, we launched that first project, the My Private Pocket. And after that, we explored more and even deepened more of our scope into disability advocacy, made a bunch of different new products. And it's what's been helping me in terms of my medical journey. It's helped a lot with my confidence. And it helped me discover my passion really early on in life. So I'm pretty fortunate to know what I like doing.
It's so nice to hear how positive you are about everything. A lot of people probably have heard the term spina bifida, but may not really be familiar with what it is in great deal. First of all, how common is the condition?
It's not incredibly common. It's definitely a rare type of condition. I'd say it's about 1 in a million, but it's also definitely not one of the extremely rare diseases where we have absolutely no resources. I'm very fortunate that there's a great community we've been in contact a bit with the Spina Bifida Association, and it's just the type of deformity or disability that affects a lot of different facets and can be very different for people depending on the severity, their age, even myself growing up, my symptoms and my ability to do things has changed all throughout my younger years and has finally settled out now that I'm becoming an adult. But spina bifida has been a great way for me to meet so many wonderful different people and open myself up to a lot of different perspectives because while I've been able to meet a lot of people with spina bifida, I'm always fascinated to find out how different their experience is from mine, despite us having the same disability.
That's really an interesting and a refreshing perspective, but it's got to be particularly hard on a young person. How did you navigate that, especially when you were younger and as you were growing up, and maintain the sort of positive attitude that we see?
I wasn't always having a positive attitude about it. When I was really young, it was especially difficult for me. It was very embarrassing. I was very dedicated to hiding it from my peers, especially at school. And it made things very difficult in terms of some friendships. Luckily, my real friends are always very understanding of me and loved me regardless of my disability or my condition. But when I was younger, it was very difficult having to explain it to my peers when unfortunately it manifested in ways I didn't want it to. And even separate to incontinence, my own disability, I had to have a lot of different surgeries, some spinal reconstruction, foot reconstruction, and detethering of the spinal cord mostly. And because of that, there was a lot of periods in my life where either my disability was completely invisible or it was extremely visible because I was recovering from surgery. And that kind of put me in a very unique position to experience both having a very invisible or visible disability. And it made things very difficult in terms of accepting myself and trying not to worry about others' judgment. But I was very fortunate enough. This business is what allowed me to embrace myself, having to explain the business and my whole business pitch over and over again at different conferences or business events allowed me to grow very comfortable because every time I explained it, somebody would be like, oh, I have that, or my niece has that, or a family member has that, or a friend has that. And it was very eye opening to realize just how many people suffer from some sort of incontinence. And it allowed me to become a bit more comfortable in my own skin growing up and become more confident in having incontinence and having disability and being more outspoken about it. That way, others wouldn't feel the way that I felt when I was younger.
Makes sense. That coming to this though, when we talk about incontinence, we're often talking about many of the different common types of incontinence that our listeners face. There are things like overactive bladder, where you just feel like you have to go all the time. Or there's stress urinary incontinence, where like when you laugh or you sneeze or you jump, that you can cause leaks. What sort of how did incontinence manifest itself in your case?
I have an overactive bladder, just as you mentioned. And when I was younger, I was able to get by without using catheterization. But see, this is where my mom will have to come in. I was really young for this. I started catheterizing very young. I think I was still single digits, if I'm correct.
Around 8 years old.
Yeah. And that was the biggest relief for me. It was very basically life changing. Catheterization was the first time I was fully able to void my bladder since my body was not able to do that. And now I'm on bladder relaxants so that the overactive bladder doesn't bother me in my day to day life. And those have been incredibly helpful too. I also suffer from bowel incontinence, and that's a majority of the incontinence that affected me when I was younger and in school. Because while I was able to learn and began using catheters at that age, it was definitely more difficult figuring out how to work with bowel incontinence, and both incontinences together is what pushed me to go ahead and find my own solution.
They do say necessity is the mother of invention. So tell me, so you decided one day, I can't take managing how I have been managing. What was going through your mind, and what was that sort of invention and discovery process like?
It was very much, as you said, necessity. But it was really difficult to go throughout the whole school day. My mom and I tried so many different things. I had an extra lunchbox, and my extra lunchbox would have all my medical supplies in it. But then it would became awkward because why was I taking a lunchbox into the bathroom? And other times I would have to carry supplies in my hand, or I would have to have a teacher have access to my supplies. And it just became really complicated the more and more we tried to find a solution. And that's when we realized that what we were doing so far was not working for me. So when we very at the very start of creating our product, it was a lot of prototyping and trying out different materials, different places. We used to put the pocket in my school uniform at the start, then it was shorts, and then eventually ended up putting it in the underwear. And I was always guinea pig. I was prototyping everything at school. I'd come back and I'd tell my mom, oh, this worked, oh, this didn't work. I'll never forget one time we were testing out a new fabric for my pocket in the shorts, actually. This was one of the very first iterations. And I'll never forget when I sat down, you could see the pocket go up through my PE shorts. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that's when we knew that wasn't going to work out for me. So different experiences like that is how we started slowly building our way up to what the product is now. And I'm sure my mom has way more memories of this than me. If you want to jump in, because I was pretty young and we were doing all this prototyping at school.
Yes, it started actually, now you mentioned, the way we approach it was we never thought it was going to be a business, but I did it more of a game with her because she was so young and to engage her. So I would tell her, I know the first question was, if we have a magic wand, like when you go to Disney and you can invent something, what would you invent? And that's how the game started. And then we would go to yarn fabrics and I said, you're the box, you choose the materials. Of course, you would choose graphic designs in the material. We'll do the zipper with different colors and we got Velcro buttons. So it became more of a game, but also it was a way for her to focus more on a solution than the problem. And yeah, we never thought it was going to be a business. And then little by little, we start tweaking it. But my concern was more about how can I help her find a solution because I couldn't go to her with the school and help her with the supplies and the things. And she was having a lot of issues with kids didn't want to play with her because she would have accidents. And of course, there's some odor. So there was all these things that she had to deal with. And as we're trying to figure out, okay, how can she go and change and manage her thing on her own? So by doing the games and creating, I didn't think it was a business, but it was more about a solution for her. And then once we figure it out, okay, this is working. That's when she told me, Mom, why don't we help other kids? Why don't we do this? And we sell it, not sell it. She was saying, give it to other kids. I said, okay, no, we have to do a business. We can just give it away. But it was in her mind because she went through the process. So that's how it started.
That's amazing. I loved how you mentioned focusing on the solution more than the problem. That's got to be really helpful and give you a great perspective. So you're literally choosing fabrics and pulling out the sewing machine and the glue and creating designs. That's pretty fascinating. Are you somebody who's experienced at making garments and things like that, or was this a total really?
Not at all. But I am from Colombia, and we used to travel all the time in Colombia, and that there is very easy accessible. So I was able to take underwear there with extra fabric when I found something that I liked. And then with Isabel, I said, okay, can you not manufacture, but hand sew it? And it was very economical, 12, and then we'll try it. So I had that help that I was able to have somebody else do it for me. In the meantime, Isabel and I will just do a little bit of sewing and gluing. So it was a little bit of both, but no, I didn't have an experience. I was just going by creativity. Okay, what can we do? And do a little buttons and zippers, things like that.
That's very cool. I mean, it's fun because it's not just coming up with a solution that's like a medical solution. There's fashion involved as well, and taste and all and style and all that sort of stuff. So I guess that adds a nice element. I'm imagining, Bella, you probably enjoyed that part of it also.
Yes, it was very fun. Now at University of Notre Dame, I'm studying design. But back then, that was my very first introduction to design. I was just sketching in a little notebook, super messy. And eventually later on, we refined it into what I wanted it to be, which is patterns on the underwear that would be appealing to kids, so little girls and little boys. So that was very much the very beginning of my design journey. And it was very fun when I was younger. It was a great way to get me involved in the whole making process.
I love hearing that. So now, is the product really designed towards younger people specifically?
Yes, this is specifically for children. We have gotten quite a few requests for young adults or even older adults throughout the years, but since we've geared more towards disability advocacy, we haven't had yet a chance to do that next iteration of my private pocket. But it's definitely something I want to look at into the future because I've gotten a lot of requests for it and I'm growing. So the business always grows with me, like it has been throughout all my years. So probably when I'm a bit older, I would love to look into a second iteration of my private pocket for young adults or adults in general.
So that's great. You focus on your core audience and then you can start to expand as you get more entrenched in with that audience. That's an absolutely great approach. But there's more than just design that goes into this, right? Because there are things like waterproofing and lining and stuff like that. So technically, how difficult was that to get right or get to the point where you felt that it was ready to go to market? If you're living with a bladder or bowel issue, you know firsthand that it can be a daily struggle. It's not like it's something you could just ignore when there are other things you want to focus on. That's why it's a good idea to follow the National Association for Continence on social media. We have an active Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page, and we put out daily tips and insider information to help you manage your condition. If you're looking for a little bit of inspiration or motivation, if you're interested in finding out about new therapies or new treatment approaches, check us out. We're putting links in the show notes to help you get there in a click, and you'll see that it's really worth a follow.
Definitely my mom should be the one to jump in. I was pretty young, but she was the one who was always talking to manufacturers, looking for that right type of fabric. And she even traveled looking for the perfect type of fabric, right?
Yes, we try to do it in the United States, and people are, let's say, manufacturers didn't pay attention to us. They were like, "You want to create what? A pocket in an underwear?" So I got a lot of resistance. I even went to Colombia too, and it was hard. I ended up going to China, and that was years ago, where I was able to find I work with a manufacturer that can actually create and develop. And yeah, we were looking for the different, like we wanted to make sure it was some type, the underwear, the pocket had some type of water resistant, but it's comfortable for the skin because they have to wear it. So definitely Isabella was the guinea pig. And then I would ask her, do you want some extra liner inside? And she's, no, I don't want to wear this during the day. So literally it was based on what it would work for her and what problems she had. And I will go back and forth and talk to the manufacturers and, do some trials. She was more involved in the creativity part. Like she said, she wanted designs. She wanted ice cream, for example, in the designs. And I'm like, we cannot put in the fabric of the underwear ice cream. So we're able to create, okay, we put some little gads or a little something with some ice cream. So yeah, she was more involved in the fun part. Like I told her, you were creating even the mascot, like helping us figuring it out. And I was behind the scenes trying to figure out what will be the perfect material for this type of underwear.
Okay, that's great. So now you're solving a problem specifically for your daughter, Bella, for yourself. How do you decide that, okay, we have this thing that we've created that's helpful to go from there to actually a marketable product and reach out to the rest of the world to get them to take advantage of this also?
It has been a challenge, but we started with a Kickstarter and wanted to get a feel where are there people interested. And I did some research to find out if there are other medical conditions that will require or we need a pocket. So we got some numbers and I was like, you know what, let's just launch it. Let's start with it. And then we started getting the feedback and we saw the need and that people are purchasing. So literally we did a leap of the faith. And from more of a family hard part, I was more, my husband talked about it. Okay, let's just do it once. Let's sell it. That will help Bella open the doors because we noticed how it gave her confidence and she felt more comfortable to talk about it. And that's when we said, you know what, let's do a leap of faith. Let's just do it. If we don't sell it, we'll donate it. If anything, we went through the experience, but it actually opened doors. And yesterday, as a matter of fact, we just got another mom that wrote to us saying that her daughter uses diabetes equipment and it fits in the pocket. So it's opening doors to other conditions. It wasn't like right away we thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're like, okay, leap of faith, let's see. So it has worked out.
That's amazing. So now you take this leap of faith and you do the Kickstarter. Was the Kickstarter itself received? Did right off the
We
bat?
budgeted to obtain $12,000. So with that, we're like, okay, there's definitely a need, and there's at least there are people that are interested and that actually supported us. So that's how it went.
Excellent. So now you have a website where people can go and order?
Yes.
What is the website?
www.hidden-innovations.com. That'll take you straight to the website, or you can also go on our Instagram, Hidden Innovations, and we have a link to our website there.
That's great. And they'll find different designs, different styles, things of that nature?
Tons of stuff. We have our very first product, which is the underwear with pockets. We have a bunch of fun merchandise like notebooks, stickers, t-shirts, hoodies that are all have very empowering slogans for anyone that can wear them. And we also have more recently another product of ours that's adaptable, which is a hoodie that has a hidden pocket in it. So usually in a hoodie, you have that front pocket where you can put your hands in it. But underneath that, we have a zippered pocket that anyone can use. It could be for medical supplies, it could be for valuables, a wallet, keys, phone. We also made sure it was big enough so that an EpiPen would fit in there for those with allergies. And that was our way of expanding our audience even more and making sure that even if you're not a child who don't need an underwear because of incontinence, there's still a different type of adaptable clothing that anyone can wear. And we call it the worry-free hoodie because we want people to be worry-free in terms of caring about their condition and managing their condition.
That's fantastic. And everybody loves a hoodie. So that's great to hear also. So now you're at the University of Notre Dame. You are studying design. Where do you see yourself in the next, say, 5 or 10 years?
Oh, that's a big question. I really hope to deep dive more into design work. It's really my passion and I really enjoy it. But I also want to combine that to see if I can make a bigger impact in the advocacy world. I've unfortunately been through a lot of different experiences where there's been a lot of kind of injustices towards those with disabilities. One example is my family and I, we like to travel a lot. And with that comes managing my medical condition. So carrying a lot of medical supplies and also taking my mobility aids with me, which usually is a wheelchair when we're traveling. And one time we were traveling and we had a connecting flight. And at that connecting airport, they left my wheelchair and they weren't able to get my wheelchair back to me for about 14 or 15 days. The time I finally got my wheelchair back, it was the day before we were leaving to go back home. So those kind of things that I've experienced with the disability fuel me even more to want to make a bigger impact and really make sure that industries and businesses and people are paying attention to those with disabilities and really paying attention to our needs because it's not something extra. We just need that accommodation so we get the same access as everyone else. And since I'm very passionate about both disability advocacy and design, I'm really hoping in the future to hopefully partner with a company, maybe even do some licensing with a larger company. That way they can sell our product and I can reach a bigger audience, make sure we can have a bigger impact and kind of erase or eliminate all those injustices that those with disabilities are often forced to face.
I have a feeling that Shark Tank is in your future.
That's the question we get a lot.
I can imagine. So as you live with spina bifida, you're talking about how you had a number of medical procedures, you've had surgeries and some other things. Typically for somebody with your condition, what is the prognosis? How much is treatable? How much is the sort of thing that is just chronic and you have to learn to adapt? What is the outlook like for somebody who's dealing with your condition?
Problem with that is that it's very different depending on the person. I'm very fortunate that I'm basically middle of the road. I don't have extremely, like, super extreme symptoms, but I'm also not symptomless like some people with spina bifida are and don't find out until way later in life. And they happen to get, for example, an MRI and it shows up and they would never have known. So I'm very much middle of the road in that sense. So with people with spina bifida, it very much varies depending on the person. Luckily, I'm very middle of the road. So I'm very fortunate that I don't have extreme symptoms. And there are others who barely have any symptoms or at all. And in terms for me, I have had 3 detethering of the spinal cord surgeries, and I've had 1 foot reconstruction surgery. And all of that has worked out great for me because I'm able to walk and I'm able to not have to be completely dependent on my mobility aids while I still use them day to day, especially in college as things ramp up. I'm very fortunate that my disability is very dynamic. And with that, treatment varies a lot. There's physical therapy, I do massage therapy, and even medication for things like overactive bladder, or also to prevent any infections with my bladder. It very much depends on the person, but in my case, what's most affected is definitely my bladder, my bowels, and my whole ability to walk long distances or stand for long times. But since spina bifida is super dynamic, it really depends on the person what kind of treatment they're going to be needing.
So wow, that's really interesting to hear. So as you know, this is life without leaks. And one of the things we always like to ask our guests before we're done is to see if they have one little hint, tip, strategy, bit of advice that they could share to help others live a life without leaks. So now I'm going to ask you if you might have one.
I always love being prepared. That is my motto. Anyone with incontinence or any sort of medical condition or any kind of symptom knows that you always have to be prepared. So that's the number one tip I always live by. To make it fun for me when I was younger, I had really cool backpacks. And as I've grown older, I have beautiful purses. That's what my way of making it fun for myself to make sure I'm prepared. I always have a very cute bag with me, but within that, I have my catheters, any wipes I might need, medical supplies, even normal stuff like little cloth to clean my glasses. I always live by being prepared to make sure that you can have a fun day and not have to worry too much and live a life without leaks.
I don't think that I could expect better advice from anyone. So I appreciate hearing that. Thank you so much. And we're going to make sure to leave a link to your website and your Instagram in the show notes so anybody can go and find it there instead of having to remember and type anything. They'll just be able to click. But Bella and Teresa, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate everything you've had to offer and wish you just incredible success with your innovation. And hopefully it catches on, gets an audience that's as wide as it should have, and as many people as possible take advantage of it. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us, Bruce. You've been a great host.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Life Without Leaks has been brought to you by the National Association for Continence. Our music is Rainbows by Kevin MacLeod. More information about NAFC is available online at nafc.org.